A billionaire's marriage crumbles under the weight of neglect and unmet needs. In his loneliness, he meets someone who seems to offer redemption, charming, attentive, and perfect in every visible way. But his loyal housemaid begins noticing inconsistencies. Small lies, sudden coldness when no one's watching, dangerous behavior toward the baby. When she speaks up, she's systematically destroyed, accused, humiliated, nearly imprisoned, while the charming fiancé tightens her grip. Then the man who should have listened decides to see the truth himself. Disguised as a gardener, he positions himself to observe what happens when no one knows he's watching. What he witnesses at the edge of a pool will shatter every illusion he's built and force him to confront a terrible reality. The woman he planned to marry has been endangering his son all along. Daniel Walker lived in a mansion that felt increasingly like a mausoleum. His wife Laura moved through the rooms with the ghost of someone who had already left. They argued about absences and accumulated resentments, about time that had passed without connection, about the slow death of intimacy replaced by obligation. Their son Liam remained unaware of the fracture, protected by routines and the steady presence of Mariah Jones, the housemaid who had cared for him since birth. Mariah moved through the chaos of their collapsing marriage with quiet competence, ensuring the baby felt safe even when the adults around him were unraveling. Then Daniel and Laura stopped trying. The divorce happened swiftly and without spectacle. Laura moved into a small house in a quiet neighborhood, visiting Liam on weekends, carrying the ache of separation like a permanent weight. Daniel remained in the mansion with Liam and Mariah, two people who depended on him and whom he was struggling to be fully present for. His loneliness was specific and consuming. Then Vanessa Turner appeared at a charity gala. She was everything a grieving, neglectful man might dream of, attentive, charming, interested in his story, seemingly unbothered by the complexity of his situation. She visited frequently, brought gifts for Liam, smiled for photographs, and positioned herself as someone ready to heal what had broken. Daniel proposed within weeks. Mariah noticed immediately that something was wrong, not in the way Vanessa appeared in public. She was flawless in those moments, but in the moments when she thought no one was watching. The coldness toward Liam when Daniel wasn't present, the way she held the baby stiffly, without genuine tenderness, the sharp sighs when he cried, the eye rolls, the sudden impatience that contradicted her public performance. Mariah tried to communicate her concerns gently. Daniel didn't hear them. He was too eager to believe that someone could care, too desperate to fill the void that Laura's departure had created. Vanessa began a systematic dismantling of Mariah's position in the household. At first, it was subtle. She criticized the way Liam's clothes were chosen, the temperature of his bottles, the cleanliness of the house, always with a concerned tone, always as if she were only trying to help. Daniel, still emotionally fragile, began to doubt himself. Perhaps he had been ignoring problems in his own home. Then Vanessa escalated. She planted jewelry in Mariah's room and reported it stolen. She made mistakes in Liam's care and blamed them on Mariah's negligence. She called the police with false accusations of theft. Each action was calculated to appear innocent, each one designed to damage Mariah's reputation and credibility. The police found no evidence of theft and left without charges. But the damage was done. Even though Mariah was never formally accused, the public humiliation poisoned Daniel's perception. He no longer looked at her with trust. He looked at her with suspicion. Mariah continued working, terrified that one more accusation would cost her the job she depended on, unable to understand why the man she had served loyally for 8 years no longer believed in her integrity. Daniel felt something was wrong, but he couldn't articulate what. The security guard, an older man who had worked the property for decades, finally pulled him aside and explained that in all his years observing Mariah, she had never made serious mistakes. The recent problems seemed deliberate, almost as though they were orchestrated. The words unsettled Daniel. They awakened a suspicion he'd been avoiding. He needed to see the truth with his own eyes. He devised a plan that would require him to become invisible in his own home. He arranged with the actual gardeners to pose as a new hire, dressing in worn clothes and boots, covering his face with a hat. For an entire weekend, he moved through his own property like a ghost, observing everything from outside the walls. What he witnessed shattered every remaining illusion. He saw Vanessa moving through the mansion with an arrogance he had never noticed. She gave orders to staff with a coldness that revealed her true nature. She spoke to Mariah with undisguised contempt when she thought Daniel wasn't around. Her entire demeanor was a performance he had been blind to, a carefully constructed act designed specifically for his benefit. But worse was what happened at the pool. Vanessa, believing Daniel was away handling business, ordered Mariah to stay inside the house. Then she carried Liam to the pool's edge and began handling him recklessly. She swung the baby from side to side without proper support. She brought him dangerously close to the water. She treated his terror as entertainment, laughing while he cried in pure fear. Mariah, watching from inside, felt her panic rise. She couldn't ignore her instincts. She rushed outside, shouting warnings, begging Vanessa to stop and step back from the edge. Vanessa ignored her. She acted annoyed, telling Mariah to return inside and stop interfering. Hidden among the plants at the garden's perimeter, Daniel watched his son being held over water by someone who showed no concern for his life. He watched Vanessa loosen her grip, let Liam slip slightly toward the pool's surface, and laugh as if it were a game. That moment broke something in Daniel that could never be repaired. He didn't hesitate. He dropped his tools and ran toward the pool, pulling Liam from Vanessa's arms before she could drop him into the water. His son clung to him, sobbing in terror, his small body trembling with fear. Daniel held Liam against his chest and felt the full weight of everything he had failed to see, everything he had refused to acknowledge, everything his willingness to be loved had cost his family. Vanessa tried to laugh it off, claiming she had only been playing, that Daniel was overreacting, that this was harmless fun. But her words fell into a void. Daniel was no longer listening to her voice. He was looking at his son's face, seeing the terror that had been there more than once, and understanding finally what Mariah had been trying to protect him from all along. He turned to Mariah, still standing nearby in shock. He asked her to tell him everything. Not fragments or concerns, but the complete truth of what she had witnessed. Mariah spoke carefully, detailing the incidents he had seen but not understood, the dangerous handling at the pool, the bruise on Liam's forehead that Vanessa had caused but blamed on Mariah's negligence, the constant coldness beneath the performance, the complete lack of genuine care for the baby. With each word, Daniel felt the last of his resistance crumble. He looked at Vanessa with new eyes, eyes that could finally see the lie that had been presented to him so carefully. He saw the calculated charm, the strategic affection, the entire apparatus of deception that had been designed specifically to exploit his loneliness and isolation. His voice, when he finally spoke, was steady and final. "The engagement is over. You need to leave this property immediately." Vanessa's face shifted through shock, anger, and desperation. She tried to argue, tried to manipulate, tried to reframe what he had just witnessed. But there was nothing left to manipulate. The truth had been exposed at its most vulnerable. A child nearly falling into a pool, a woman laughing at his terror, a system of lies finally collapsing under the weight of undeniable reality. Vanessa left the property within the hour, her departure swift and humiliating. That evening, Daniel gathered the household staff and told them the complete truth. He explained what he had witnessed while disguised as a gardener. He detailed Vanessa's manipulation, her lies, and the danger she had posed to Liam. Then he turned to Mariah. "I apologize," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You were right. I was wrong. I chose to believe someone I barely knew over someone who has been loyal to this family for 8 years. That was a failure of judgment that I will spend time trying to correct." He announced publicly that all accusations against Mariah were erased from the record. He increased her salary significantly and reinstated her full authority over Liam's care. He acknowledged in front of everyone that she had been the only person truly protecting his son. Mariah's hands trembled as she accepted his apology. She said nothing extensive, but her eyes carried the weight of vindication, the relief of being seen and believed after weeks of being treated as though she were dishonest. Later, Daniel met with Laura and explained everything. She listened with growing horror, then gratitude toward Mariah for having protected their child, even while being vilified and undermined. Laura thanked Mariah sincerely, acknowledging that her strength and loyalty had been extraordinary. Together, Daniel and Laura worked with lawyers to establish legal restrictions preventing Vanessa from approaching Liam, the mansion, or any place where the family regularly spent time. The documents were drawn up quickly and signed immediately. Vanessa was formally, legally barred from their lives. When Mariah learned of the legal protection, she felt something inside her finally relax. For weeks, she had lived in fear that Vanessa might return with another accusation, another lie, another attempt to destroy her. Now knowing that wasn't possible, she allowed herself to cry, not from sadness, but from profound relief. She had endured humiliation and suspicion, but she had never abandoned Liam. She had protected him even when doing so jeopardized her own position, and finally, that had been recognized and honored. The mansion, which had felt heavy with tension and unspoken accusations, began to return to something resembling peace. Liam stopped trembling when held. He began to smile again. He relaxed into Mariah's arms with the trust of a child who knows he is truly safe. Daniel watched them together and felt gratitude deeper than words could express. He had almost lost both of them, his son to danger and Mariah to a system of lies he had allowed her to be trapped in. Mariah resumed her work with the same dedication she had always shown. But now, without doubt hanging over her, she moved through the mansion with restored peace. Laura began visiting more regularly, and the three of them, Daniel, Laura and Mariah, formed a different kind of family unit, one held together not by romantic love, but by the shared commitment to protecting a child and honoring the loyalty of someone who had chosen his welfare over her own safety. In the center of it all was Liam, held gently by hands that would never drop him, cared for by someone who had proven that true love isn't spoken in charming words and calculated gestures. True love is shown in the quiet moments when no one is watching. True love is demonstrated through unwavering protection. True love is what Mariah had offered all along, what Daniel had finally learned to recognize, and what would shape the life of a child who had been so close to falling.